Hello again, Uncle Vasil here with another history video. This time, Uncle Sage requested a video about his home state of Kentucky. Make sure to grab your KFC delivery and tune in. Okay then, let's jump straight into the video. Chapter 1. Kentucky before colonization. What we now know as Kentucky has been inhabited by hunter-gatherers for thousands of years, with people settling in the region near the end of the Ice Age. Over the centuries, indigenous cultures such as the Adena, Mississippian, Eastern Woodland, and Fort Ancient peoples flourished, building complex societies and establishing many settlements. When Europeans first arrived, they encountered multiple indigenous nations, including the Shawnee, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Mingo, and Osage. Each nation had its own territories, seasonal patterns, and cultural traditions. For example, the Shawnee were strongly associated with the bluegrass region and actively defended it from European encroachment, while the Cherokee did not maintain permanent towns in Kentucky but had a significant presence in the southeastern part of the region. Kentucky was home to so many groups because it sat at a major crossroads of rivers, trade routes, and migration paths. This meant that different nations often competed for hunting grounds, negotiated alliances, or engaged in cultural exchange. In 1750, Virginian explorer Dr. Thomas Walker led the first small colonial expedition into parts of Kentucky. His goal was to explore and map the land to determine whether it was suitable for future settlement. His journal provides some of the earliest English descriptions of Kentucky's wildlife, geography, and terrain. Walker also recorded names for several important landmarks, including the Cumberland Gap and the Cumberland River. In 1769, another explorer, Daniel Boone, began a larger expedition through the Cumberland Gap into Kentucky. Boone's journey was significant because it effectively opened the region to future settlement. At first, there were very few settlers. The people moving through Kentucky were mainly explorers, traders, and military scouts. These early travelers relied on two major routes, the Ohio River and the passes through the Appalachian Mountains. The Ohio River route was initially used by French traders, who traveled the region to trade, map the land, and form alliances with local indigenous nations. Later, explorers such as Dr. Thomas Walker and Daniel Boone used the Appalachian Mountain passes to enter Kentucky. European presence in the region accelerated as competition among European empires intensified, pushing them to claim more territory. Land companies, including the Loyal Land Company, funded expeditions to survey and secure land claims. This expansion was not without conflict. These explorations and encroachments contributed to rising tensions that led to Lord Dunmore's War in 1774 and the Cherokee-American Wars. Chapter 2. The Colonization of Kentucky. One of the first major conflicts between Europeans and indigenous nations in the Kentucky region was connected to the so-called Treaty of Fort Stanwix. This treaty was signed between Great Britain and the Iroquois Confederacy to establish a boundary between colonial and indigenous lands. However, many nations who actually lived in the affected territory, including the Shawnee and Mingo, were not consulted. This sparked immediate tension. In effect, the Iroquois ceded land they did not inhabit, and the tribes who lived there rejected the agreement. Combined with aggressive Virginian expansion into the region, these disputes led to violent clashes in which European settlers were attacked by indigenous warriors. Although the military strength of both sides was roughly comparable, the Shawnee and Mingo were eventually defeated, allowing Virginia to assert control over the area. Still, indigenous resistance to European encroachment continued. After the United States gained independence, American settlers pushed deeper into Kentucky and soon encountered Cherokee resistance. Cherokee warriors attacked frontier settlements almost immediately, and American retaliation triggered decades of raids and counter-raids. Over time, other nations, including the Muskogee and Shawnee, joined the struggle, forming a broader multi-tribal resistance. The Cherokee also allied with the British during the American Revolution in an effort to halt American expansion. During the Revolution, Kentucky became one of the bloodiest frontiers, as settlers faced both British-supported indigenous attacks and extreme geographic isolation from other American regions. The Kentucky frontier experienced some of the most violent raids of the entire war. Despite this, American settlement continued to expand. Hostilities with the Cherokee formally ended with the Treaty of Tellico Blockhouse in 1794, when Cherokee leaders met with U.S. officials to restore diplomatic relations. By this time, Americans had already established their first permanent settlements in the region, including Harrodstown and Fort Boonesborough in the 1770s. Chapter 3. Kentucky becomes a state. Eventually, after years of negotiations and steady population growth, Kentucky officially became the 15th state of the United States in 1792, following a long separation process from Virginia. Settlers living in Kentucky felt distant from Virginia's government and wanted their own autonomous political structure. After 10 conventions debating borders, governance, and independence from Virginia, the U.S. Congress approved Kentucky's admission and authorized the drafting of its first constitution. The Constitution was written in Danville and became effective when Kentucky entered the Union. Kentucky was the first U.S. state located west of the Appalachian Mountains, marking the nation's first political expansion beyond the original 13 colonies. Slavery was also deeply rooted in Kentucky from the earliest period of permanent European settlement. Enslaved people were considered essential for clearing land, building settlements, and supporting agricultural production. Kentucky's first constitution explicitly legalized slavery. As hemp and tobacco farming expanded, especially in the bluegrass region, the demand for enslaved labor increased significantly. Enslaved labor became central to the state's economy because it made Kentucky's signature crops, particularly hemp and tobacco, highly profitable. When the American Civil War began in 1861, Kentucky declared neutrality, an unusual stance for a slave state. Its leaders hoped neutrality would prevent invasion and avoid internal conflict. Chapter 4. Kentucky's role in the Civil War. However, Kentucky's neutrality collapsed quickly when Confederate forces occupied Columbus, Kentucky. This pushed the state to officially enter the Civil War on the side of the Union. Even so, Kentucky's population remained deeply divided, and Kentuckians fought for both the Union and the Confederacy. The Union government in Frankfort was recognized as the official state government, but a Confederate shadow government also existed and was recognized by the Confederacy. Kentuckians chose different sides for several reasons. Many families were split in their loyalties, with relatives fighting on opposite sides. The state also had economic ties to both the North and the South. In addition, many who supported the Confederacy did so to protect the slave-based economic system that sustained their wealth and businesses. After the Civil War, Kentucky was not placed under federal reconstruction. This meant the state was not militarily occupied, its government was not reorganized, and federal oversight was minimal. As a result, Kentucky's pre-war political and social structures remained largely intact, allowing the state to recover more quickly than many former Confederate states. Despite having stayed in the Union, Kentucky became increasingly sympathetic to the Confederacy after the war, and many white Kentuckians resented federal policies, such as the 14th and 15th Amendments. Parts of northeastern Kentucky remained unstable for years after the war, and racial violence and discrimination were widespread throughout the state. Even so, the post-war period also marked the beginning of significant economic growth in Kentucky. Chapter 5. The making of modern Kentucky. Kentucky's economy grew mainly because of agriculture, coal, and manufacturing. The bluegrass region became the most important agricultural and manufacturing hub. Industrial growth was closely tied to Kentucky's abundant natural resources, especially raw materials and coal. Together, these three sectors, agriculture, coal, and manufacturing, formed the economic backbone of the state. This economic and industrial expansion eventually led to rapid urbanization. Louisville and Lexington were among the first cities to grow significantly, drawing many people away from rural areas in search of better opportunities. By the end of the 20th century, more than half of all Kentuckians lived in urban areas. Kentucky also became internationally known for its bourbon and its long-standing tradition of horse racing. Bourbon has deep historical roots in the region dating back to early frontier settlement. As tourism increased, distillery tours, tastings, and heritage sites became major attractions, turning bourbon into a global symbol strongly associated with Kentucky. Today, bourbon is a world-famous luxury product, exported internationally and recognized as a uniquely American spirit. The Kentucky Derby also became a major reason tourists visit the state, celebrated for its uniqueness, spectacle, and long-standing rituals. The region's limestone-rich soil contributes both to the quality of Kentucky bourbon and to the breeding of strong, healthy horses, a connection that helped shape Kentucky's international image. Modern Kentucky is also known worldwide for its Kentucky-born bluegrass music genre. Its creator, Bill Monroe, developed a new musical style characterized by the mandolin as the lead instrument and a sound that was high energy, fast tempo, and high-pitched. The style became so popular that American bluegrass bands now perform across the world. 21st century Kentucky is characterized by strong rural traditions alongside rapid urbanization. On the one hand, rural communities remain essential to the state's economy and to preserving Kentucky's unique cultural heritage, including its bluegrass festivals. On the other hand, cities like Louisville and Lexington have become centers of innovation, art, and education. This gives Kentucky a distinctive blend of rural and urban elements. Even though the state is considered very modern, it continues to preserve its rural history and traditions, and rural communities still play important economic, political, and social roles. The Kentucky of the 21st century is a place where the old and the new do not compete. They collaborate. That blend is what makes Kentucky stand out from anywhere else in the world. This sums it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If this video goes viral, I will make sure to get you guys some KFC buckets. Please like, share, and subscribe for more. Bye for now.